She walked into the room, head held high, carrying nothing but her backpack and her confidence, but the second she spoke, laughter erupted. They didn't see her, they only saw her skin, her youth, her voice. "My mom's in Special Forces," she said, and the room shook with mockery. Every laugh cut deeper, a reminder of how quickly respect can be stripped away when prejudice takes hold. Yet no one knew what was coming next. In a few moments, the laughter would stop, and everything they thought they knew would be shattered. How could one girl's truth silence a room built on assumptions? Aaliyah was an ordinary 13-year-old with a sharp mind and a bright smile that could light up any room. School was her world, friends, teachers, and the quiet routines that made life feel safe at home. Her mom was her hero, a decorated Special Forces officer whose stories of courage and discipline inspired Aaliyah. Every day she admired her mom's strength, even if most people outside their home couldn't imagine the world she came from. That afternoon, Aaliyah was visiting a local community center, a place she'd walked past countless times. She felt confident, excited to share something personal with the adults there, never expecting it would turn into a test of courage far beyond her years. What started as a simple conversation would soon spiral into something she couldn't have predicted, a moment that would challenge not just her, but everyone around her, to confront their assumptions. As Aaliyah stepped into the brightly lit community room, she felt a spark of pride. Today, she wanted to share something about her mom, her real-life hero. But the moment she opened her mouth, the air shifted. Laughter, sharp, cutting, dismissive laughter that ricocheted off the walls. Aaliyah froze. She could feel every eye on her, not with curiosity, but judgment. They didn't hear her words, they only saw a young black girl, bold enough to speak of something bigger than themselves. My mom, she's in Special Forces," Aaliyah stammered, trying to keep her voice steady. The laughter grew louder. Whispers traveled like wildfire, some shaking their heads, others smirking. The room was no longer a place for sharing. It had become a spotlight for ridicule. Aaliyah's chest tightened. Every laugh was a silent accusation. "You don't belong here, you're exaggerating, you're not one of us." Her stomach knotted as shame and anger collided. She had never felt this small in a place she thought was safe, but deep down, she refused to back down. She remembered her mom's words, "Stand tall, even when they try to tear you down. Truth is your armor." Clutching that memory, Aaliyah straightened her posture, hoping courage could drown out the jeers. Then came the questions, thinly veiled as curiosity, but sharp as knives. "Really? Your mom in Special Forces?" The tone was mocking, heavy with disbelief. The adults around her weren't merely skeptical, they were laughing at the idea that a black girl could have a parent commanding respect in a world they could hardly imagine. Aaliyah's heart pounded. She felt the unfair weight of assumptions pressing down, the sting of being judged not for what she said, but for who she was. She tried to explain, voice trembling but resolute, "Yes, she's trained, decorated, served missions." Another wave of laughter cut her off. She clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms. The room was a storm of bias and ridicule, and she was caught in the middle. Every ounce of self-assurance wavered, but she refused to retreat entirely. She had to prove them wrong, not with anger, but with truth. Then, at the height of mockery, the murmurs quieted. A door at the far end of the room opened. Footsteps echoed, deliberate and measured. Eyes turned, mouths fell slightly open. Aaliyah's heart leapt. Something was about to change. The laughter faded into a tense silence. The room held its collective breath. Who was coming, and would this visitor finally shatter the assumptions that had made Aaliyah feel invisible for so long? In that suspended moment, the tension was unbearable. Every second stretched into eternity. Aaliyah stood frozen, a mix of fear and hope coursing through her veins. What happened next would not only redefine her afternoon, it would force everyone in the room to confront their deepest prejudices. The question lingered: could truth, courage, and a single unexpected presence silence ridicule that had seemed unstoppable? The footsteps grew closer, echoing like a drumbeat across the tense room. Aaliyah's chest tightened, every laugh from before now replaced by the pounding of her own heart. Then, she saw her mom, in full uniform, stepping through the doorway with a presence that demanded attention. Silence fell like a heavy curtain. The room, once filled with mockery and disbelief, froze. Eyes widened, faces turned pale. The adults who had laughed, whispering their doubts, could hardly believe what they were seeing. Aaliyah felt a surge of pride mixed with relief. Her truth was no longer just hers to defend. It stood there, embodied in the woman she had idolized for years. The power of her mom's presence was undeniable, commanding respect without a single word spoken. The room shifted, the laughter evaporating into uneasy murmurs. Some tried to recover, forcing nervous smiles, but the weight of reality pressed down on them. They had underestimated her, dismissed her, mocked her courage, and now, they could no longer deny it. Every assumption, every prejudice, every cruel laugh met the undeniable truth standing before them. Aaliyah felt tears prick her eyes, not of sadness, but of vindication she had endured ridicule, the sting of bias, and the humiliation of being judged unfairly, and yet, in that moment, every ounce of doubt, fear, and injustice was met with the undeniable force of reality. It was more than a personal victory. It was a silent rebuke to the prejudices that had filled the room as her mom approached. The room's tension was palpable. People shifted in their seats, caught between awe and shame, unable to reconcile their prior mockery with the undeniable truth. Aaliyah realized this wasn't just about her anymore, it was about every time someone had been dismissed, underestimated, or laughed at because of the color of their skin, and now, one undeniable presence had changed everything. The question hung in the air: could the lessons of this moment extend beyond the walls of this room? Could the weight of truth silence prejudice long enough to make people see, really see, what they had ignored for far too long? The room never fully returned to normal that day. The laughter, the whispers, and the judgment had been replaced by a heavy, contemplative silence. Aaliyah stood beside her mom, feeling a mixture of relief, pride, and an overwhelming sense of validation. She had been heard. She had been seen, and for the first time that afternoon, she truly believed that courage, honesty, and truth could outweigh even the sharpest prejudice. Her mom's presence wasn't just a personal victory, it was a mirror held up to every person in that room, forcing them to confront their assumptions and biases. Aaliyah realized that what had happened was bigger than a single moment of mockery. It was a reflection of a world where people are judged before they are understood, where color, age, or background can blind others to the truth. And yet, it was also a testament to resilience, the ability to stand tall, even when the odds seem insurmountable. As they left the community center, Aaliyah felt a shift inside her. The fear and humiliation she had carried earlier had been replaced by a quiet, enduring strength. She understood that injustice might not disappear overnight, but each act of courage chips away at prejudice, showing the world that no one should be underestimated or dismissed because of who they are. Her story, though small in scale, echoed a much larger truth. Millions face ridicule, dismissal, or worse for simply existing in a world quick to judge. The question lingered: how often do we allow assumptions to silence voices that deserve to be heard, and how often do we, as witnesses, choose to act, or stay silent? Aaliyah had found her voice, and through her experience, she reminded everyone watching that courage isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's standing firm, speaking truth, and letting reality do what mockery never could. Demand respect. How many times will the world allow prejudice to dictate its judgment before we finally see each other for who we truly are?